Hello and welcome back to Microsoft Flight Simulator, and today we're at Kirkwall Airport in Orkney, and because of the direction of the wind today we're going to take a flight to Sumburgh and in Shetland, and we're going to land on runway 33. Let me just get the map up and we'll have a look. So zooming in, this is Orkney. We have the route here with the blue range line. So fairly straightforward. I think the wind in Kirkwall is sort of light wind from the west, so we'll take off runway 27, make a right turn, and then we'll try and pick up the Sumburgh VOR. And the reason for wanting to do this flight today is that we're going to land on runway 33. Now, normally at Sumburgh, certainly at least the commercial flights use runway 0927. Even when there's a significant sort of crosswind, I guess because it's ILS equipped, and therefore you can, the minimums are low. You can land in poorer visibility, and also I guess it's a safer approach in that it's it's just straight in over the sea. The approach to runway 33, there's no navigational aid really other than the initial approach sort of course. The final part of the approach has to be done visually, and so you kind of approach from the south, and then you've got this high land here, these cliffs which you have to avoid, so you kind of come in here, turn over this farm and make your fight, so do like a quite a sort of short final turn, and then land, and you have to wave to the anyone in the lighthouse. I think that's not a lighthouse anymore, is it? It's some kind of RSPB thing, but I know that if you look on YouTube and look at some videos of Loganair flights landing on this runway, you can see them waving at people in the lighthouse. So obviously that's part of the approach as well. So the reason for doing this flight today is that today the wind, certainly earlier on today in Sumburgh, the wind was pretty much dead on for runway 33 north-northwest, and some of the real world flights were landing and departing from runway 33, which I say is fairly rare. And if you Google Sumburgh webcams, Shetland webcams, they have 2 webcams at Sumburgh Airport, and they're absolutely brilliant. They're quite high quality. You can see, and if you like turboprops, if you like things like Saab 340s, ATRs, Jetstream 41s, they're great. And helicopters. You get Eastern Airlines, Loganair flying to Sumburgh with those sort of aircraft. And this is a control tower. The webcams are in the control tower. One overlooks 0927 and the other one overlooks part of runway 1533, but also the sort of terminal area and the parking stands. So yeah, really great resource. Right, so now we know where we're going. Let's get things set up now. It's been a while since I've flown a plane in this. Actually, I've generally been flying helicopters recently, so I'm probably going to get a lot of things wrong. So in fact, before we do anything else, let's just make sure that my controls are still working, which they seem to be, so that's good. Let's get the props forward. Condition lever is to cut off, throttles to idle. Okay, that all looks reasonable. We will be flying today, so again, I won't show you the route again. It's a fairly short route. Loganair actually fly that route, usually with a Saab 340, sometimes with an ATR, so that's from Kirkwall to Sumburgh. They tend to go up to 7,000 feet, no higher than that, because it's fairly short. King Air can obviously climb a bit better than a Saab 340, so we'll go to 9,000 today. But that does mean that we need to set the cabin altitude and dial that right back, because you can see that doesn't really start until 15,000 feet aircraft altitude. So let's get that dialed right back pretty much to sea level, which is what our landing altitude's going to be. That'll do. So that's that. Oops. Have I just gone and upset something? Is that aileron trim? Now how am I going to get that back? Okay, I don't know what there's probably a command to center aileron trim. I don't know what it is, so I'm just going to have to hope that that's good enough. perils of random mouse clicking and scroll wheel moving. Okay, what should we do now? Let's get some power. Oh, let's get rid of the yoke. We'll get some parking brake is on. Turn on battery, and we'll turn on beacon. And I think we're probably good to start. So start sequence. In fact, we're not good to start. We'll turn on anti-ice or the inertial separators. I don't know if that's actually correct for this model of King Air. I was told it was the right thing to do for the B200s. And it kind of makes sense to me that if you're starting up, you don't want the engines to suck in any debris that's kind of, maybe landed in the engine inlets or something like that. So I don't know, but so what I do is turn on the engine anti-ice, the inertial separators, leave that on until we get to just about to take off, then turn it off again, then put auto ignition on. Okay, so levers we've decided in the correct position. So we'll start the right engine first. It looks clear enough. So operate the starter. I'll watch for N1 of about 12%, and the prop should also start to spin around then as well. Then using the condition lever to low idle to introduce fuel. And then continuing to monitor, making sure ITT doesn't rise too high. And N1 of 50, we turn off the starter and we can turn on the right generator. That's 50, so the starter can come off and the right generator can go on, and we can go high idle because we want to recharge the battery after the start, and we'll just check that the generator output is working, and it is, so that's all good. So we're now in a position where we can start the left engine, so it's just a repeat of the same procedure. Left starter on, wait for N1 of 12, and then introduce fuel. There we go. Fuel can come in. Monitoring the temperature. Looking for 50%, and then we can turn left starter off, left generator on. Go. And now that both generators are on, we can bring the right condition lever back to low idle, and we can get the avionics going. Now, avionics wise, this should be pretty simple because I'm just going to use the Sumburgh VOR today. I'm not going to use any GPS stuff. So a little nav map tells me that the Sumburgh VOR is 11735. So we'll go in here, and we won't go in there. We'll go here, and we will go a nav 1 frequency. 11735. And is it transfer? That should do the job. Okay. The other thing we can do is set heading bug for runway heading. So let's do that while we're here. Heading bug is going to be 270. We'll set our altimeter with Shift B. We'll turn on the wind vector display. I think VOR for this EDI source is correct. Something else we can do is, so after takeoff we're going to want to make a right turn and then get on to a bearing direct to Sumburgh VOR. Now we might not pick it up straight away, but looking on the map, the sort of magnetic track that we want is 45 degrees. So let's see if we can set the VOR course to 45, and then that should give us the direction that we want to turn to until we pick up the VOR itself. Okay, so Another thing we should do here is our initial, our altitude. We're just going to climb straight to 9,000 feet. Okay, think that's mostly done for the setup. Auto feather can come on if it worked. Feels okay. Trim, we will put a little bit of nose up trim in. Looks like we get my joystick in the right position. Okay, flaps we will set on taxi. We'll use 1 notch. I think we're probably good to start taxiing. So let's see which way we're going to go. I think we should probably make a left turn here. So let's get taxi lights on. Do we need any other lights for now? Not really. Peters will do line up. Sorry, at the holding point. Okay. Let's go. Parking brake off. Right engine, some power. Yes, the wind here at Kirkwall is actually from the west rather than from the north, but it is still from the north at Sumburgh, although the wind strength has died down a lot compared to what it was earlier today, but oh well. And we'll just do... Well, let's get to the holding line here for the runway and we'll do a quick prop RPM check as well. And we'll hold short here. Apply the brake, parking brake. Let's bring the power up a bit. And we'll just cycle the props a bit. Make sure that the oil is all working. Prop governors and stuff. Right, it's all done.
Oral warning, okay.
And we can do Peters now. So Peters on, left and right. Stall warning, fuel vents. We can have landing lights on now, taxi light off, record light on. Won't worry about nav lights because it's daytime. We put the strobe on. We can go out, and I think let's get put the flight director on, but I'm not quite sure it's going to be. Press Togo, not going to be much use really, but we'll see. Okay, let's go. Parking brake off. Looks clear. Okay, so final lineup checks. We are heading by lines with the runway, which is good. We want flaps, 1 notch, auto ignition on, inertial separators off. Get ready to start the timer. And props are forward, flaps, trim is good. Switches, I think we're good to go, so we will start the timer and accelerate. Airspeed's coming alive. Looking to rotate around 100 knots. Here we go. Up. Gear up. Down on the brakes. Gear is coming up. Yaw damper on. We're looking to... Let's get flaps up now. Trim to compensate for that. We're looking to get to a speed of about 160 knots for the initial climb, and when we get to, I think we can start our turn now. Start our turn to line up with the VOR bearing of about 45 degrees. We're above 1,000 feet now. We can bring the props back to about 1,600. We've picked up the VOR already, in fact. You see that's just come in with the distance to Sumburgh. And the initial guess for the course looks like it was pretty good. So we will turn to align with that. Level the wings, and I'm going to engage the autopilot now, and I'm going to go straight to nav and flight level change. Now landing lights need to come off. They should have come off when the gear went up because they're in the wheel well. Record light I'll turn off now as well. Auto feather off, prop sync on. Let's just check our prop RPM. Yeah, we're about right for now. And we're looking good. We're in the climb. We've got flaps are up. Gear is up. Yep, I think we're good. Once we get up to cruising altitude, we'll take a look then at how we're going to do the approach for runway 33. Actually reasonably good weather here. Let's get Sumburgh ATIS tuned in as well. 125855. I'm just going to do that on COM 2. I've got a separate radio tuning thing, so I'm just going to use that. So 125855, and let's enable COM 2 for audio. We won't pick it up yet, but we will do once we get a bit further into the flight. Oh, we can do standard pressure now as well because we're climbing above transition altitude, so let's get the altimeter set to 1013. Go. We could drop our speed to 160 if we wanted a faster climb, but we're not climbing particularly high, so I'll just leave it as it is. We're getting pretty good climb rate anyway. And there's some of these smaller Orkney Islands.
Sumburgh Airport information, Yankee 12000. Wind 272 at 8. Visibility 6. Sky condition, few clouds at 3,300 feet.
Okay, great, so the wind has shifted, so it's no longer from the north, but it's quite light, so let's just do this approach anyway, because that's what we set out to do. Actually, I can put the power levers a bit further forward because our torque over here is not particularly near maximum, so let's increase that a bit. We'll soon be at our cruising altitude, and as you can see we're still only halfway out of the Orkney Islands. There's Fair Isle, and there's just the bottom tip of Shetland here, Sumburgh, where we're heading for. So not too far to go really, and 64 miles in fact to the Sumburgh VOR. And as I say, we'll be at cruise altitude shortly, and then we'll have a look at the charts for the approach and see how we're going to do it. So we've got altitude capture now. So now we can start to bring the prop RPM back to 1500. So because that'll increase our torque a bit, I just bring the power back slightly and then bring the prop levers back, looking for 1500. It's pretty close. Okay, great. We'll stick with that. Right, let's have a look at how we're going to do this approach. So if we have a look on Navigraph charts, so the approach we want is, the final approach we want is this one, VOR DME 007 degrees. Okay, so this is taking us, this inbound radial here is taking us into the final approach point for runway 33. And don't forget, we're going to arrive somewhere from down here at the lower left because we're heading northeast from Orkney. But we can't just sort of arrive magically at this point and start our approach. So what do? Well, if you were going to fly this procedure completely, you've got an initial approach fix of the VOR, so what we could do is fly from any direction into the VOR, go once around the hold, and then fly outbound. We'd be cat A and B, I think, and then to this distance and then turn back in. But we don't really want to come all the way in and back out again, so can we do better than that? When you think about it, what you're trying to do is kind of position yourself onto a kind of like a base leg, turning base leg position, but just coming in from an arbitrary direction. Or what you can do for that is use DME arc. So if we have a look here, this is a general approach sort of procedure, arrival procedure for. Oh, it's zoomed in and won't zoom out. I've done something strange now. Okay, never mind. Yeah, so this is the arrival procedure for either runway 0927 or runway 33, kind of depending on what your final turning point is. And you can see down here, this 007 is the inbound direction that we want. That's the radial we want to fly for the runway 33 approach. All we have to do is arrive on this, get ourselves onto this 10 DME arc. You can think of it as kind of like a roundabout, you can join from anywhere. And then all we have to do is, once we're on the arc, because we're going to be coming in roughly from here, it doesn't matter exactly where, as long as we turn in at D12 and get onto the D10 arc, the only thing we have to do then is when we reach an inbound bearing of 19 degrees, so take the reciprocal of 199, you get 19. If we tune our VOR bearing up for that, turn in to 007, and that's it. And then we can follow the step down shown here, essentially at D7.9, which is here, you know, so we've turned in on the arc, turn off the arc, come in here, and we get to then we start descending from 1500 feet with a, well, it's quite a steep glide slope, isn't it? 7 degrees, so about 700 feet per minute if we're doing 140. So we'll make sure we're at 140 knots by the time we reach this point. So just going back to the arrivals again. The height we need to get to for the arc is 2100, so we want to get 2100 feet on the arc, and then when we start to turn in here, we can go down to 1500, and once we reach D7.9, we descend, we make the final turn visual, and that's it. So what do we need to do first? We need to work out when we're going to descend, because we need to be at 2100, let's say 12 miles from the VOR. Okay, so back into the cockpit here. We're at 9,000 feet. We need to lose 7,000, let's say, to get to 2100. 7 times 3 is 21. It's 21 miles, but we want to be at that height 12 miles out. So add 21 and 12. That gives us 33. So when this DME distance readout here, which is currently reading 43.8, when that reads 33, we'll descend. And we'll descend to 2100 feet. So let's get that altitude tuned in now. We're in altitude hold at the moment, so we can pre-select a new. There we go, 2100. So all we have to do is when we reach D33, we'll engage vertical speed mode. We'll descend 5 times our ground speed, which is currently 242 knots, so that's what, 1200 feet per minute. I will slow it down a bit as well, probably take it back to about 210. There's no real MSA to worry about. Well, there is, because there are some high cliffs here, but we're out over the sea, so from this direction we're safe enough to descend 2100. Very much broken cloud. A lot of the weather I get since the most recent sim updates is kind of broken clouds like this. I mean, similar performance is great at the moment, but the weather I'm not 100% sure about. Sometimes it doesn't seem to match what's outside, and sometimes it doesn't even seem to pick up any live weather. Other than that, I'd say fairly happy at the moment. Okay, 37. We've got 4 miles to go before we start to descend. Let's just. It's pretty cold outside, but there's no moisture, so we're fine. Engine parameters still look good. Let's synchronize our heading bug. We should always sort of try and keep it synchronized anyway, in case you need to engage heading mode at any time, or you ATC asks you to fly a heading, then at least you're not going to be way off when you start. And we'll need to be in heading mode when we do the turn onto the arc and the final turn in. Now then, here we go, 33.6. Let's start now then, because it takes a second or two to react. So we'll go VS mode, and we'll engage minus 1200 on the vertical speed. And I'm going to bring the throttles back. I'd like to sort of get us maybe slowed down to nearer 215, 210. And as we're descending to below the transition level, let's get the ATIS again and figure out what our new altimeter setting is.
Sumburgh Airport information Yankee 12000 Zulu. Wind tree 4110. Visibility 6. Sky condition few clouds at 3,300 feet. Temperature tree 2.10. QNH tree 0.21. ILS runway 27.
Is that 3021?
Landing and departing runway
Let's see if we can do that.
DSR aircraft say direction of flight.
3021.
All aircraft read back hold short.
The other thing is, I think the wind has changed and is now from the north. Let's just listen again for the wind direction.
Sumburgh Airport information Yankee 12000 Zulu. Wind tree 4110.
Yeah, 341. Great. So exactly the right sort of, and it's quite strong, so that's exactly the right sort of direction for runway 33, so all should be good. So now what we're looking for is a DME distance of 12 miles, and when we see that, we turn right about 80 degrees on the heading bug, onto the arc, and that should give us roughly then position us on 10 DME arc, and then we're looking for the 019 radial inbound. When we cross that, we turn in to 007 for the final course, and that'll, so we arrive here roughly here on the arc. Let's just zoom in a bit. We go round the arc a little bit, turn into 007, descend from 1500 feet, and then we complete the approach visually. That's the plan anyway. We see how we get on. Heading bug, I think, is staying synced. Let's just resync it in case. Yep. Not far off. 22 miles now. So actually fairly short and quick flight. I'm really waiting for the there's the thing, I believe there's 2 ATRs being developed for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Is it one by Asobo and one by, I forget now, I won't say in case I get it wrong, but some other third party. That'd be great, because then that actually will have an aircraft that does fly this route. Although of course the King Airs, not the 350s but the 200s, are used to fly up to Orkney and to Shetland for air ambulance work. So we're not that far off, especially in this livery. But yeah, an ATR, I know it would be really great to have a Saab 340. I wonder if Coronado could convert their Saab 340B to re-implement it for MSFS. That would be something. And then of course, even above those two, what I'd really like personally is a Jetstream 41. I really like Jetstream 41s. Eastern still fly them up here, and it would be great to have one of those. They're one of my favourite turboprops. So actually we've got some cloud in front of us here, but hopefully we'll get below that when we come to do the final approach. Oh yeah, the minimums. Let's just have a quick look again at Navigraph charts. So if we look here, you can see the minimums are quite high, 800 feet basically. So if we can't see the runway by 800 feet, we have to go mist, which is straight ahead to 3,000 feet initially. Okay, how are we doing on the descent? 14 miles, is that right? I find this distance readout down here to be quite hard to read from a distance. And we're getting near our target altitude as well, which is good. And then don't forget, we'll need to drop that to 1500 once we start to turn off the arc. Is that 12 or 13? Sorry, I can't see now. 12.6. Okay, let's get ready to turn. So heading mode, and that's D12. So let's turn onto the arc. I said it's about 80 degrees is what I normally give it. Puts you in a reasonable position. I think we can just see the tip of Sumburgh head over there. We're still descending, but we're nearly at our target altitude, which is good because we're a bit fast, so the speed should bleed off. Oh, let's get the course for 019 dialed in. So when this offset pointer comes in, we know we've crossed the 019 radial, then we can turn in. Now, DME distance is currently 10, so we might want to bring our heading bug. I don't know, 10's fine, we'll leave it for now. If it starts to go up above 10, we'll turn left slightly. But we're probably quite near crossing this radial anyway. I expect we'll see this deviation box start to come in soon. Still fairly cloudy, but it's patchy hopefully. And there we go, bars coming in. So we need to get ready now to turn on to a final course of 7 degrees, 007. And we'll get a new altitude dialed in, 1500. Need to be ready for that. Speed's coming down to 200, that's fine. We're about to cross the radial, and we're at exactly 10 DME, so that's good. We'll turn in now to a course of 007. And we'll change the OBS bearing to also be 007. And then we can go into nav mode. We'll also start a gradual descent here. Let's go for say 500 feet per minute. Don't want to speed up anymore, so I'm just going to bring the power back a bit more. So now we're descending to 1500 and we're turning on to what should be 007. And in fact, let's go nav already, as I think we're going to be pretty close by the time we finish the turn. Now let's get the speed back now. How far out are we? I don't know if I could read this stuff. 8.9. So it's we need to start our final descent at D 7.9. Yeah, let's get slowed down here. We're going way too fast. We want to be speed stable really at about 140 at the start of our. I've kind of let this slip a bit. Like, let's get auto feather arm now as well. Prop sync off. Let's get the record light on. We can drop the first notch of flaps, so I'm going to do that. And we already should be descending, so I'm late. So let's just get the VS back to 700 now. We'll carry on down to 800 feet. VS mode. Slow right. Let's slow this thing right up. Let's get the gear down. We're going to be a bit high, but we're going to be visual in a minute, so we can finish the approach visually. Okay, we don't want the speed to drop any lower than that before we go final flaps. I think I'm going to take over now and just fly it visually. So I'm kind of aiming initially for where the lighthouse is. And if we kind of aim to be at the same height as the lighthouse, I think that's a reasonable position to be in. We might as well go final flaps. Get it right down now to 120. So our final approach speed I think is 110. Landing lights can come on. The gear's down. So we're okay. We're okay on speed. We just got to watch our altitude now. Use the power to control that. Don't want to get too low too soon. I'm pretty sure that that lighthouse building used to be more lighthousey. It's kind of been replaced by an office block. I do wonder whether my streaming stuff is working properly sometimes. So I think we're about right. We might be a little bit high, but so we have to do the wave to the office block. And I haven't pushed the props forward yet. I'll do that when we touch down before we put reverse. There's the wave. We're a little bit high, but we've got to clear this ground in front of us as well. Gears down, flaps down. Here's the kind of farm building that we need to do the final turnover. And I'll just bring the power back a bit now. too much. I'm going to go to idle because this plane's quite floaty since the recent sim updates. Props forward. It's a bit long. Down, full reverse, and brake. Definitely a bit of a long rollout there. I think we'll just about be able to exit here. And as we have exited, we can do some cleaning up. Transponder can go back to standby. Flaps can come up. Can go taxi light on, landing lights off. Oh, let's do that with the buttons actually. Strobe off. And we'll go park up nearer the terminal. And you can see up there ahead of us the approach we just used to come in. You can see the lighthouse and the cliffs. And we should have put that on. So anti-ice, the inertial separators should put on after landing for the taxi back. Auto ignition can come off now. Pitos can come off actually. All the different heat fuel vents, pitos, etc. Let's park in here. Parking brake on. Avionics can now come off. Condition levers shut off. As the engine starts to spool down, we can bring the props back to feather. In terms of lights, we can get a taxi light off now. We get the record light off. Just the beacon left on now. Generators can come off. Anti-ice can come off, and that's it. So battery can come off now, or beacon light, battery. And here we are in Sumburgh. Yeah, that was fun. I do quite like that approach. So if you keep an eye, I say have a look on the internet, look for Shetland webcams, have a look at Sumburgh Airport if you like turboprop aircraft and helicopters. Is a great resource. And next time the weather is with the wind from the north, maybe have a go at the approach to runway 33. Anyway, so thanks for watching, and hopefully see you again soon. Bye for now.